Alright, well, I'm back here again. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Amiga CD32. Now, this is advertised as the first disc-based system in America and whatnot, and it is to some extent. Uh, it's called 32 because it's supposedly the first 32-bit console or whatnot, but in actuality, it's really, I'd say it competes with the Nintendo, regular Nintendo, Sega Master System, and it even competes with the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. This here is the European PAL version, and I bought it because, well, it has unique stuff. I mean, it was obscure, and it's basically, at the time, Amiga was a computer company, and they decided to go into consoles. And we all know Commodore from the Commodore 64. Well, this is essentially the Commodore Amiga, but it's been upgraded to a CD32. So what it did was it took the Amiga 500 guts and parts and everything, and Amiga 1200 guts and parts and everything, slapped them into a CD console, and then ta-da, here we have the Amiga CD32. Now, what was attractive about this to me was it had a very good games library. First off, if you're a fan of the Strike series, like Desert Strike or whatnot, Jungle Strike, Urban Strike, this has Jungle Strike. And what makes this version unique is, since it's on a CD-based system, it has full motion video. And this is the only version that has full motion video, and I really enjoy that. And it's very unique. And Battletoads, if you ever played the Battletoads on NES or Sega Genesis, well, this one has the best graphics of the two, but it also has full motion video. It's the only version that has cartoons in it, to prolong the story and stuff. And if you ever played Total Carnage, Akari Warriors, it's basically a Rambo clone where you got two guys running around shooting everybody in the jungle and everything. This one is, I say, superior. I mean, the only other Total Carnage I know of that was on par would be the Jaguar one, but it don't have CD quality audio. And I think Brutal Sports Football, if you ever played Mutant League Football on Sega Genesis, this is on par, if not better than the Atari Jaguar version. But it has CD quality audio, and I just got some more bang for the buck. And if you don't know, CDs versus cartridges holds a lot more space. So we got Chuck Rock 2. If you ever played the Chuck Rock games, like on Sega CD or Chuck Rock, Caveman and stuff. Well, this is part 2. This is the only version that has cartoons in it, has full motion video and stuff. The Lost Vikings, I like that game. It's on Super Nintendo also, and this one here has cartoons in it. I really like it. Chaos Engine, if you ever played True Lies, top-down shooter, well, this is like that, except it's two-player. It's like True Lies or Smash TV, but two-player, and you can only do it on this console. I really enjoy that. Zool, it's a platformer game, very colorful, very pretty. It's on here. Gloom, it's the Commodore's attempt to cash in on the Doom franchise. Instead of Doom, it's Gloom. It's a first-person shooter. It did pretty well. Microcosm, it's one of those on-rail shooters, full motion video, completely. I mean, it was on Sega CD, but I gotta say, this version looks better than Sega CD. James Pond's a good game. Fly Harder's a pretty good game. Trolls. I mean, we're going into the kids area now. Trolls. Remember, Trolls were hot back then? Well, they got their own game. Beavers was a decent game. More Liberation. So, what can I say? Here's the controller. The controller here, it's very odd, but reminds me of like an airplane controller or something, like flight stick on an airplane or something. You hold it like this, and it's got all these buttons and stuff. It says Amiga CD32. It's got a start button on it. What's unique and odd is this here cross pad D-pad. It's the cross pad is glued on there, and underneath that it's just a regular old circular pad, but I had this put on. It is very unique. But one downfall about the Amiga CD32 is even though this has 6 buttons. Most of the games only use 2 buttons, so that's why I say it competes with mostly Nintendo NES stuff, because it's 2-button stuff, and some games only use 1 button, because at the time the Amiga 500, the computer, it was only like using an Atari joystick, 1 joystick and 1 button, but what is really attractive to me is this sucker turns into an Amiga 500, and which opens up a huge library of games and stuff like that. So games that caught my eye were Road Rash. I'm a real fan of Road Rash, and I thought, well, wow, Road Rash was exclusive to Genesis. No, it wasn't. The original Road Rash was also on Amiga 500, and so it plays Amiga 500 games, and Amiga 1200. There's an add-on that goes and hooks up to the back of this, and it puts a floppy drive on the back of it. Now this is the European version. Now you might be wondering, why would you buy the PAL foreign European version? Well, because most of the games were made in Europe, because before Commodore went out of business, it didn't have much of a chance to sell it in North America at the time. So anyway, so I bought the European version, and it came with a disc that has over 200 Amiga 500 games on it to play right out of the box. 500 Amiga 500 games, complete library of all the games, and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, so I thought, well, this thing can play Amiga 500 games. I want to go buy Road Rash. So I went and bought Road Rash for Amiga 500. But there's one problem. What's the problem? There's a problem. Discs. Oh, it takes discs, alright. But these are computer floppy disks. So I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to play this game? Well, so I thought, oh, and another problem I had was with this compilation disc that came with this 500 Amiga 500 games. It had a problem. This is a PAL European console. It wouldn't work on my TV. So I was like, what do I gotta do? Turns out this sucker uses a 220 power plug. Now, my dryer hooks up to one of these, but I ain't gonna run a record all the way to my dryer's plug-in. So I had to buy an adapter. One of these. This converts 110 stuff to 220, so I could plug it into that. So I had to buy one of these separately. I was like, alright, cool, great. Now I can play my Amiga 500 games. Nope. I had to buy a NTSC to PAL video converter, so I got that. I was like, okay, well, whatever. But before I did that, I went and I bought the super rare, completely boxed, in the box, American Amiga. The American. These things are rare, buddy. I'm talking so rare. I mean, last time I saw one, it was like $600 on Amazon. The American version of the Amiga CD32. So now I got the American version. So finally I got the American version. I'm like, alright, finally I can play Road Rash. Yay, I get Road Rash. I take the CD. Oh wait, I can't. So I was like, how the heck do I play disc-based games? Well, it turns out there's an even more rare add-on called this floppy drive. It's an analogic floppy drive. Now what this bad boy does here is it turns the Amiga CD32 into a full-fledged Amiga 1200 computer. And what that means is the Amiga 1200 computer is fully compatible with all the 500 floppy disks. Right there, buddy. And stuff like that. So it plays all the 500 games. So I'm like, oh, jumping for joy. I'm like, oh, great, yay, alright, cool, yay. So I take my disc, I put my Road Rash in there, I pop it in, and I'm playing a little bit, and it wants me to type in a code. I'm like typing a code, so it turns out I need a dang keyboard. I was like, oh no, I need a keyboard. Well, it turns out the keyboard for this thing is even more rare than this, and more rare than the US console itself. The Amiga 4000 computer keyboard is compatible with this, but it is so rare. I almost gave up. It took me 3 years, but boom shakalaka, I got the keyboard. Now, the Amiga 4000 keyboard. And the best thing about this is most of the games that are on the Amiga 500 that I didn't know were compatible with the keyboard, and you had to have a keyboard to, you know, play them. Because at the time, the piracy thing was you had to type in a code from the manual. You had to have the manual to type in a code to let you pass. Like, for example, Road Rash has said, how much does the Shuriken 1000 weigh? Like, how the hell would how can I type it in? This don't have no numbers on it. This don't have no keyboard. So I had to find a keyboard. I almost gave up on the Amiga 500 library completely. But as it turned out later on, I learned something else. Before I get into that, let's talk about this. It took me 3 years to find one of these. I finally got it. It was brand new. Amiga 4000 keyboard. And this is just super awesome because this opens up a lot of doors. For example, the 200 games, the Amiga games that come on this compilation disc, a lot of them won't work unless you got a keyboard to type in, you know, codes or press F1, F2, F3, F4. Like, for example, Road Rash, the dang gas, you got to hold up to push gas, you hold down to push brake, and left and right steer. Well, there's an alternate driving method. If you press F4 or F5, and it'll make your gas be the gas button, a button instead of up or down, which I prefer. And you gotta have a keyboard for that. And it was totally awesome, ecstatic. Now, before I got full-fledged keyboard and all that stuff, I've been researching stuff. After I got the US version, I learned that with the mouse, you can, if you got a mouse for the sucker, you can bypass the output settings. You can output PAL or NTSC. So that was awesome. I was like, great. So before I bought the converter for video signals, I got the mouse, and you hold the left mouse button, and it'll allow the CD32 to output in NTSC video format. So any of these games would output the format I needed it to. So I got the US version, right? And it turned out, I thought, well, the US version will play all these PAL versions. Well, it turns out, yeah, it'll play them, but you had to use the mouse to output to NTSC signal first. I was like, oh man. So I got the mouse and I got everything situated. I got everything to where it would work, and now everything is working. And there's one other thing about CD32 I gotta mention that that is really cool, is that it plays CD32 movies, like Opticana, Dinosaurs, educational films, Mind Run film, you know, a whole bunch of CD32 stuff. Let's see here. And why would I want them? There's a couple Amiga 500 games I just gotta have. I just love the way they look online, and it was Nightbreed. Nightbreed had 2 Amiga 500 games. One of them's like Castlevania, and one of them's an interactive movie. It's a point-and-click adventure. But I really enjoyed the way it looked, so I'm gonna buy those and I'm gonna play them on this. And let's see, what else can I say about this thing? It comes with well, you can buy an adapter that goes on the back. Called SX1, and it adds RAM and all that stuff, but I'm so confused about that, I don't know where to begin. There's one online for sale, but it don't come with a power supply, so I can't use it. Yeah, I'm super excited because now I can finally play all my Amiga 500 games, you know. Like, there's a version of RoboCop on here that's better than Nintendo's. Desert Strike, there's a version on here that, you know, is pretty badass, you know. Yeah, man, I was super excited to get this. Oh, it outputs an S-video, which is the highest quality video at the time. Has stereo sound, of course, for CD. Has a volume much like the Sega Mega Drive or Sega Genesis. It has a volume and a microphone, a headphone jack. They say that you can use Sega Genesis controllers on here too. Well, that's awesome, which is pretty cool. But mainly I was really ecstatic because I'm a huge Road Rash fan, and to be able to play Road Rash on another console other than Genesis was extremely exciting, and now I can do that. Well, there you have it. The European and North American Amiga CD32 console with the Amiga 4000 keyboard with a mouse and a whole library of games. Now I can start, and with this, and this thing's super rare too. The CD add-on, man. It's unofficial, but yeah. This CD add-on here from Analogic, it practically turns this thing into an Amiga 1200, and that just blows my mind because Amiga 1200 is compatible with all the 500 games, and so this opens up a huge door. So practically I got over 200 games right here in itself with this one disc. I mean, let's put it this way: this thing had Mortal Kombat 2 when the regular Nintendo didn't. So if you ever want to play, say, Mortal Kombat 2, or Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on a regular Nintendo with 2 buttons, this is the version to get, because this essentially does that. I mean, but who cares, right? But still, better graphics than Nintendo, but with a 2-button button set. But that's that. Talk about that. Thanks for watching, and I appreciate it. Go get your Amiga CD32, folks. It opens up a huge library, and that's why I bought it. It's not just Amiga CD32. This thing plays Amiga 500 games if you got the discs, and it plays Amiga 500 games if you got the floppy disk drive, and it does play Amiga 1200 games. But I believe some 1200 games use more RAM. I don't know if this gives it more RAM. I don't know. I haven't had any problems with it yet. It plays what I play, but there's a specific Amiga 1200 game that I really want to get. It's called Chaos Engine 2. Chaos Engine 2, which is the sequel to this. The sequel to this Chaos Engine. You can see it's you can't see that. Anyway, yeah, it's a sequel to that. And you know me, I like sequels just like Road Rash. I'm gonna have all of them if I want Road Rash. I want them all. And this one's pretty good, and I'm excited to try a Genesis controller on it and try with my controller adapter. I got a PlayStation to Genesis controller adapter, and I'm anxious to try that and see how it works. But I think that's all that I can say about this right now. But thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good day.